Hey everyone, I hope that you are doing well. Taking a look at the different base builds that you get in the Core Player's Handbook from 4th edition. With every class, there are 2 basic builds that you can use as a guide to help get you started. They're kind of like subclasses in a way, in that it's a certain selection of powers and feats and things that help you fit a particular theme that you might be after, and it gets you started. You don't have to fully understand all the feats and the powers when you're first trying to build that character. You can use one of these base builds and it tells you which ones to choose, and then you can learn about them more as you're playing the game. So it's a really great way to jump in and get it started, just with a very basic description of what you're after, and decide which one fits best to you. And the nice thing is that you're not locked into it. These are just suggestions for you to get you started. If you have other ideas that you want to do and make different choices, you're perfectly free to do that. So, but I want to take a look at them and see how they stack up and what the different options are, and how those characters might differ depending on which of those options you want to go with. So we had looked at, I believe, the cleric before. Today I want to take a look at the fighter and dig into it a little bit. So before we do that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the description for other ways that you can support the work, either by becoming a channel member to get early access to videos, or by joining Ko-fi and you get access to our very small Discord server. But let's jump in and take a look at our fighter. There are, as always, 2 base builds that you can work with. There's the Great Weapon Fighter and the Guardian Fighter. The Great Weapon Fighter is, as you would expect, this is somebody who is going to really want to lean into having the big, heavy, strong weapons, and they're going to get up right there into the fight, face to face, swinging a battle axe or a great axe or something like that. The Guardian Fighter, all the fighters are going to be ones that are going to be doing melee and right up there in the fray, but this one might be a little bit more about trying to do the fancier things that is going to shift the battlefield and move other characters around. Do other things like that, as opposed to the pure just deal damage is really what you're getting with your Great Weapon Fighter. So let's take a look at some of the specifics. For the Great Weapon Fighter, the primary ability that you're going to have is strength. That's going to be true for every fighter that you build. Really, strength is going to be the thing that you're after for your fighter. Constitution is good because you want to have a lot of hit points, and you want to have a lot of healing surges. So because you're going to be right up there in the fray, Constitution is going to be the way to go. And that's the only 2 real ability scores that it mentions for your Great Weapon Fighter. Again, this is probably the most I want to say basic, but the most just straightforward character that you're going to make. This is the character that is going to have a big weapon, lots of defenses, lots of hit points, and is just going to go in there and deal some damage. The feats that it has, it says if you choose power attack. So let's take a quick look at power attack, and we can see that one is right here. So as long as your strength is at least a 15, which it most likely would be if you're building a fighter, you're going to get a +2 damage for a -2 attack. So essentially you take a -2 penalty on your attack roll, but if you hit anyway, you're going to get a +2 to your damage. So that's the suggested feat. It also mentioned that if you were a human, where it's at a human at first level, you're going to get a second feat that you can choose, and it recommends weapon focus, which is doesn't have a prerequisite, and you get a +1 damage with the chosen weapon group, and that is right here. You can, so if you're using one of the weapons from your weapon group, then you get a +1 bonus for that. So that's the feat that it has. And remember, that human feat is only if you're playing a human, because you don't get the extra feat otherwise. So otherwise you would really go with the power attack, where you have that option to sacrifice a little accuracy in order to deal some extra damage. For your skills, athletics, endurance, and intimidate, those are all going to be the exactly what you would expect for this type of character that is just really getting up in the face of those enemies and just being the mean character that you want to intimidate that enemy and put them in their place. So when we get to our powers, we got Cleave and Reaping Strike. So our at-will powers, and again, all the powers for your fighter are really going to be strength-based. Cleave is the really cool one that allows you to, if you hit an enemy, then you can kind of keep going with that damage to another enemy. Your momentum moves you, and it allows you to deal some extra damage to another enemy. So you deal your regular damage to an enemy, and an enemy adjacent to you other than the original enemy takes damage equal to your strength modifier. So having that really strong strength modifier, you make an attack, you deal some substantial damage to an enemy, and then your momentum just kind of carries you around, and that weapon hits another enemy that's adjacent to you, and you deal some strength modifier damage to it. So that's almost like your go-to power that you're going to use with this character. And then Reaping Strike is the next one. Strength versus AC, regular damage, your weapon die plus your strength modifier. But then even on a miss, you're going to do half your strength modifier damage. And if you're wielding a two-handed weapon, you deal damage equal to your strength modifier. So with a two-handed weapon, which is what you're going to probably have as if you're playing this type of character, because I'm going to get over to the weapon table here. So your two-handed weapons are going to be things like, a war pick, a war hammer. I'm trying to longsword, and they all have the versatile trait, which is, there are one-handed, but you can use them two-handed. And if you do that, it's going to deal an extra point of damage to that. So you're likely going to be using weapons that you would be able to wield two-handed, both to be able to get that extra damage. And then if you are dealing if you're using Reaping Strike, then you're going to deal damage equal to your strength modifier. So you're going to get extra damage on top of that. And that's really what this character's about. Hit a lot of creatures and do a lot of damage to those creatures. Very, very straightforward type of character that you'd be making here. Your encounter power would be Spinning Sweep, which is this one here. You're going to get strength modifier damage, and you knock the target prone. So that is as good as it gets. You think about your vicious attacking character. Not only are you going to deal damage, but you're going to knock them on their backside, and that puts them in a more vulnerable position for you or your allies to make an attack. And then the daily power is Brute Strike. And let's take a look at that one. Daily power, Brute Strike. This one is, it's a pretty basic attack here. It's strength versus armor class, just like all the other ones, but you're getting 3 weapon die damage plus your strength modifier. So whatever your weapon is, if your weapon is a D8 is the damage die, you're going to get 3 D8 damage plus your strength modifier. So that's when you're trying to finish off this attack and just be done with this particular enemy. That's when you break out your Brute Strike. The nice thing with Brute Strike is it's also reliable. So if you miss with that attack, you don't lose it. You could still try it again. So it only goes away if it actually hits, and then you deal the damage, and then you can't use it again. But because it's reliable, if you miss, you get to try again, which is always nice. I love the reliable ones. And that's your great weapon fighter. I think about as straightforward as you can get for a fighter character. If that's what you're after, just wreaking havoc, then the great weapon fighter is the way to go. The Guardian Fighter now is the one that is very similar. That's still going to be strength-based and stuff, but it's going to be doing, maybe focusing a little more on some of the other stuff that you could do as a fighter, really taking advantage of some of the powers that are out there. So really looking at the 4th edition things that you get to do. And if you look at it, it mentions that, you still want strength as your primary ability, but then you might want to think about doing dexterity as your secondary, and possibly even wisdom to take advantage of the combat superiority feature that you get up here. So there's a little more complexity to this one. And so if you're someone who is wanting to experiment a little and see what else a fighter can get, then that's where your Guardian Fighter could come in, still starting with the strength, but then mixing it up a little bit with those other ones. The suggested feat here is the weapon focus. Oh, and I'm sorry, I was wrong when I talked about the great weapon fighter. Sorry, the human feat it mentioned was an action surge, which I believe gets you a 2nd action point. I'd have to check that one out. We can look at that here. The primary feat that it says to choose is the weapon focus, which gives you the +1 bonus if you're using a weapon from your weapon group that you've selected. And then the human feat here is human perseverance. So let's take a look at those. So action surge, weapon focus, and human perseverance. Let's take a look at those in our feats. So the action surge, +3 attacks when you spend an action point. So sorry, it's not an extra action point. It gives you a bonus to your attack roll if you spend an action point. So that's a pretty good bonus for your action surge. Human perseverance, only if you're human, +1 to your saving throws if you have to make a saving throw. And then we already looked at weapon focus was a +1 damage with your chosen group. So that's the feats that are kind of in play for both of these. And I'm sorry I messed up which one was the human feat recommended feat for the Great Weapon Fighter, but that weapon focus is the one that would be what you would want to choose for your Guardian Fighter if you're going to go with this base build. Suggested skills: heal, intimidate, streetwise. So you can see here where the other one was more about really those things that you would want if you're that just pure raw power type fighter up there in the fray. Whereas this one, now you're starting to get to, okay, you're going to have the heal skill. So if someone of your allies needs some attention, you have the ability to help. You still have the intimidate and then the streetwise to be able to understand in urban areas and things like that. So mixes it up a little bit there. At will powers, Sure Strike, and Tide of Iron. So that's these two. And as with most of these, there's always 4 at will powers to choose from. And with these base builds, basically they set it up where the one base build uses 2 of them and the other base build uses the other 2. So the Great Weapon Fighter used Cleave and Reaping Strike. This one is going to say Sure Strike and Tide of Iron. Sure Strike is weapon strength plus 2 versus armor class, and then your regular damage. So Sure Strike is going to give you an extra bonus to your attack roll for it. So hence the name. It's just kind of giving you a little extra to try to make sure that you hit. So certainly late in the battle when you really need to have that hit, that one would come in handy. And then Tide of Iron, strength versus AC, but you must be using a shield for it. So you're going to be your regular damage, but you get to push the target 1 square. If it's your size or smaller than you, or one size category larger, you can shift into that space that the target occupied. So that's a mouthful. So you do your regular damage with your strength modifier, and then you push the target 1 square if it's your size smaller than you or one size category larger. So basically, if you're a medium character and it's small or large, then you can push it 1 square, and then you can shift into that space that the target occupied. Now it says you must be using a shield. The idea is that you have a shield and you're using that shield to push that character the 1 square. That's the idea behind that one. So for Tide of Iron. So again, it's a little bit fancier than something you would do with your Great Weapon Fighter, because now you're using a shield and you're doing some stuff with it. Then the encounter power that it has is covering attack, and that one is here, strength versus armor class. You get 2 weapon damage plus your strength, and an ally adjacent to the target can shift 2 squares. Now we were talking about that this was a character that's not only just about them making attacks and dealing damage, but rather also doing things to help their allies. And that shift could help an ally maybe getting to a flanking position or something like that, which can be really good. So you're kind of manipulating the battlefield a little bit by using that power. And then the other one is Comeback Strike. For your daily, that is right here, strength versus armor class, 2 weapon damage, and you can spend a healing surge. So now you can to heal yourself. So this one would be good because maybe with this one you're not putting as much into your constitution, because maybe you're leaning towards dexterity, and so you use so since you don't have as much constitution, you don't have as many hit points, maybe spending a healing surge during the battle is actually a good thing that you could that could come in handy for you. So that is our 2 builds for our fighter. If you're just a straight up I just like to attack, I just want to swing my weapon, I just want to deal some damage, your Great Weapon Fighter is the way to go. And it's a really easy build to get started with and try out the mechanics of the game. Very straightforward, not a lot of complexity in the stuff that you get to do there. The Guardian Fighter is similar because it's a fighter and it's really doing a lot of the same stuff, but it gives you a little bit of extra flavor to some of the things that you can do, and you can start to really feel some of that 4th edition coming out in if you choose to go that route, because you can get those little bit of extra things with those powers that make you say, oh wow, fighters are pretty cool in this game, and things that maybe you weren't able to do in other editions. So definitely would encourage that one. So, but with these base builds, it's nice because in both cases, regardless of which one you choose, it allows you to get started in the game right away. You just go with that base build, just make those choices, and then figure it out as you go, as you're playing. You can start to get a feel for what those things do, and you can't go wrong with either one of them. And again, they're all suggested selections, so you're not locked in. If you want to choose the Great Weapon Fighter, but you want to choose a different power along the way, that's okay, because it's just suggestions. It's just to get you started. If you want to choose something different, you can feel free to do so. You can even mix and match them and whatever you want to do. It's really just a tool to help you get started in the game. But that is our base builds for the fighter. Hopefully you found that informative. Love to hear your comments on any different ideas that you have about those things. If there's anything I got incorrect other than kind of mixing up the different feats there, you know, please leave those down in the comments as well. And as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the description for other ways that you can support through either channel membership or Ko-fi memberships if those things interest you. But hope you found that helpful. Until next time, take care.